Hey everybody, Mikeycat Outdoors here. So what are we doing today? Got a Haven Net Tent XL here. So just tried it out yesterday, made a few mods to it. It's pretty cool, so let's check it out. Quiet little Haven. So this is the Haven XL. I got the Realtree camo tarp on top. Put it up here in the porch mode. I've got a couple little spots here where you can tie that into toggles down there on the bottom, and there's a little shot cord loop there in the middle that'll tie to a little tab there, so you can lock this tarp down to the body. Got the head end there, and I haven't tried that yet, but I'm guessing if you ratchet that up on the other side, that'll help tilt that up so you can make it kind of like a tilted bed, or kind of like do a sit-up mode of sorts. I'll have to try that in the future. This thing came with some little hook stakes, and it's got regular style reflective ropes, which, I mean, there's better ones out there, but it works for car camping and stuff. I added a couple of beaners to this and just put a little loop here in the end. Originally I had larks headed it on there, but I wanted to make them detachable a little more easier, so I just had some of these from War Bonnet and just popped them on there. You could get a little fish hook or whatever, you know, type of adapters if you want. That's one mod I made. And then I've got a red beaner that I'm probably going to put towards the head end so I can kind of keep it noted for what it is. The straps there, I may end up getting some hammock gear straps, because those ones, they're decent, but like when you get down to the end here, the last loop is a lot longer, and the length of this compared to my hammock gear ones, my normal 10-footers, these ones seem a lot shorter. So tree placement, right now, it's kind of like I put it on the end of both of these at my traditional hanging spot, and yeah, if I had trees that were further apart, I'd be a little screwed. Put this one up a little higher so I could get a little more tension on the ridgeline. But I'll show you this here. This is my setup. Of course, you got the poles in there. They go into little pole pockets. You got plenty of mesh storage on both sides. This has the True Lay pad. There's a couple different pad variants you can get, and you just inflate that, and that's what gives you your flat lay. And overall, it's not too bad. Up here on the ridge line, there were a couple of spots where you could hang stuff, a couple of toggles too, so you can hang stuff up there. You can tie that net off if you need to, but you can set this up as a regular hammock with that flat lay. You can also set it up on the ground if you have trekking poles or something, you're in a field, you don't have any trees around. There's instructions online on how to do that, to kind of fake the beaners and stuff on the end, to get the ends at least set up so it's structured like a tent, and then you can use your guy lines and guy it out and everything. You don't have to have the tarp on this, so I put it on, and I'll show you here. There's like two little holes in the rubberized part of this tarp, and you just kind of feed it through your carabiner, and then it just kind of holds it onto the surface of all this. There's two other loops here too that I guess if you had a ridge line or something and you wanted it up higher, you could use that as an option too. And then this also has a couple of toggles. Not really sure what those are on there for exactly, but figure it out in time. Tarp, you can get the basic green, you can get a blue, you can get this Realtree. I think they had one other pattern that was kind of like a zigzag, but I kind of like the Realtree because it just blends it in a little more to the forest and all that. Green itself would be fine. That's basically what the tent itself comes in. Then they have a safari version, which is a heavier duty one, but it's all in white, and then a southwestern tarp. But this guy, weight-wise, for the setup, I would say it's somewhere around like 7 or 8 pounds. I have to go look at the specs on the website, post them up here. But that's definitely a lot heavier than your traditional hammock setup. The normal one, you'd have maybe a pound and a half hammock, pound and a half or so for each of the top quilt and under quilt. So you might be looking at 4-5 pounds, depending on if you're summer or winter. Maybe as low as 3 for a regular traditional gathered end hammock setup. Also have a war bonnet, a ridge runner, and a Hammock Dremore, which that one uses a pad, but they're kind of your more flat lay bridge style hammocks, similar to this. This is kind of similar to a Hammock Sundra. It's kind of like a tent and a hammock all in one. So this is probably the closest thing that I've seen that in terms of, you know, how it's constructed and everything. I have a few friends, both online and in real life, that own one of these. So I thought about it for a little while, just kind of waited, and then I was like, yeah, you know, I might just pull the trigger on it. It's not cheap, so you'll buy once, cry once for it. If you're car camping, you're doing something with a really short backpack trip, say like a mile or something, yeah, you could use this. If you're gonna be doing like 7 miles, 10 miles, 20 miles, whatever, I'd go with a traditional setup as opposed to this, just because of the weight. 7 to 8 pounds, yeah. But you got the pad, you can get an insulated option for it as well. This already has insulation in the pad, but you can get like a winter insulation kit. You got the tarp, you got all that stuff. You can buy it with or without the tarp. You can get whatever pads you want. This one's got kind of like horizontal baffles, whereas like an Hammock Dremore has vertical baffles on it for the structural rigidity of this guy. So that's one thing to keep in mind. But all out, you're probably in that $300-400 range. I'll pull the price up, put it out here on the specs. But if you compare that to a regular hammock, by the time you have a top quilt, under quilt, hammock, suspension, tarp, all that stuff, you're kind of in that same ballpark if you go with cottage brands. And that's one thing I like to emphasize too on this. It's a smaller company, all made in the US. So a lot of stuff I try to buy are from small US cottage companies, just because you've got the quality of the materials, you've got the customer service, you can send it in, get repairs, stuff like that if you have problems. You can't do that really with something you buy on Amazon that's made overseas too well. So you gotta factor that all in, you know, living wages for the workers and stuff too. So anywho, rambling on. But yeah, it's not too bad in here. Like I said, I got my little bug repeller light from Flextail. I got that in here, as I had one skeeter in earlier last night. I got this little grid fleece quilt liner from Jack's or Better, and that was sufficiently warm enough to keep me warm last night. It was probably in the upper 60s, 68, 69 out here last night, so that was more than enough. And like I say, you got all these little mesh pockets down at both ends, and it gives you space to store everything. And I know people like Shug, they've used these before, and you know, they can like sit in here and then try to put their pad or their backpack behind them and stuff, and kind of wedge a pillow up or something like that to sit up so they ain't hitting this bar. But yeah, it gives some flexibility. I'd say the only complaints that I've seen though is that really the straps aren't long enough. Be nice if they made them a little longer, give a little more flexibility on setup. And also when you set this up, it seems like I have to put the straps up pretty high to get the right angle to keep this off the ground. I set it up without weight, probably about 2 feet off the ground, and over time it was settling down a little bit. But when I get into this, between my wife and I, we tried it, and we're laying maybe 6 inches off the ground max at our low spot when we have our weight in here. My son, he doesn't weigh much. He's like a feather, so he was still a good foot off the ground. But you know, if you got wet ground or rain or something coming in, that's one thing just kind of be cognizant of, that you may have to hang this a little higher up just to be able to get it off the ground enough by the time you're in this with your weight. And likewise too, if you plan to use it like a seat or something like you would with a regular hammock, you want it up a little higher so that when you put your weight in here and it sinks, you're going to still be at a comfortable height. So you may have to actually hang this up closer to like 30 inches off the ground, or you know, something like that. just so that when you get in, it sinks down and you're still at maybe 18 or something. So this is something to think about. So I went ahead and did a couple of things here as I was taking stuff down. I basically toggled the corners down in the middle so you can drape this tarp down to the body. So if you had like a really bad cross rain, or you were in a winter situation, you wanted to keep all like the cold wind and snow out, you could set this down really tight to the body. One other thing I did was there's a buckle here on the side, and I cinched it up a bit. So I come over here to this other side, I flip the tarp up, cinching that down raised that head portion up, so that way you're in a nice kind of pseudo pillow mode right there, and it allows you to sit up a little bit. So that's kind of a neat feature. So you don't have to bring like a boatload of pillows. You can pretty much just have your jacket or something under you and, you know, use it as a pillow if you don't have one. And this gives you a little bit of incline, especially if you snore or, you know, have reflux. It gives you a little bit of that curve that you need, and then that makes it nice. But like I say, without that tarp on, you could drape that tarp up and probably just tie it up on itself. Likewise, you can take the screen net off of here if you want. Just unzip it on both sides and roll it up with the toggles. But with all the bugs and stuff, I tend to keep those on. But I went ahead and swapped out my head end beaner with a hammock gear one that I had that's red for head and black for foot. And I managed to have just enough slack when I was letting up off the guy lines for the tarp and stuff, with all the stretching I was doing on this, that I was able to finally get this up to the second loop. So what that did was raise this up off the ground to where I'm upper thigh range on that now. And when I lay in it, I've got a lot more room. So I'll just kind of show you. I got plenty of room, basically, you know, knee height and all that, to sit up in this now. So that's what you really want to do when you set this up, is to get it a good 2.5 feet or more, probably, you know, up in the air. I'd say a good 2.5 feet maybe. Definitely no less than 2, because by the time all of the straps and stuff get stretched and settled in and everything, and you get your weight on here, it's going to want to sag it down quite a bit. But doing this, you can actually put this in a nice chair mode, and you got a little bit of tension because there's some grow grain in the end of this under the zipper, so you'll have a little tightness under your thigh if you're sitting on the edge for a while. But sucking all the air out of the pad there, make it a little easier. I mean, you can see that caves in fairly well when you have that uninflated. It's just a little Flextail pump. I got it on the deflate side right now. I also got the inflate, and got a little lantern built into it. Or got the little air pump. So that one's pretty nice. Actually has some decent airflow to it. So a couple different end adapters, and yeah. Well, overall, that's the whole shebang there. If you like what you've seen, feel free to like, comment, subscribe, give me a thumbs up, hit the notification bell, get notified of new content, or don't. It's just whatever you want to do. It just helps the channel grow, so trying to hit 1,000 someday. I'll be lucky to hit the evil number here in a few months, maybe. Anywho, hope you enjoyed. Catch you all again in the outdoors. As always, thanks for watching.